Well, the good news is at least the state isn't forcing this on voters. The bad news is I kind of know how this stuff goes with voters. Tomorrow, Oregon putting up for a vote, having the rich put up with paying higher taxes. In fact, it's a mail-in vote. They might have already decided. The state wants to raise taxes on its wealthiest 2%, generally those households making more than $250,000 smackers, but individuals making as little as $125,000, thereby absolving the state from any blame in this. Politicians can come back and say, well, the folks did it, so blame the folks, which the Wall Street Journal's Steve Moore calls novel but nutty. Steve, what do you make of this?
Well, first of all, Neil, I like the idea of allowing voters to vote on this. I think it's the voters' choice.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I'll be very surprised if the voters vote to increase taxes, even though the taxes are targeted towards the rich and towards big companies. You know, this is amazing, Neil. If they pass this tax increase in Oregon will even have higher taxes than New York and California. So,
and by the way, we should say you're right that the voters in the past have rejected attempts to do this, as have a lot of states. But this is clearly the state trying to say, dump it in their lap. If the people decide, the people have decided, and it's not us, right?
Yeah, and it has national implications because this is a liberal initiative to try to put all the taxes on the back of the wealthiest. It would raise the tax rate to 11% on income, which would be the highest tax rate in the country. And if this passes in Oregon, I think you're going to see a lot of other states try to do this, Neil, because as you know, as we've talked about, there are some 40 states right now that have big budget deficits. So here's the problem. It may sound great. Tax the rich, tax the companies. They've got the money. The problem, two problems. One is that they create the jobs, of course. The people in the highest income tax bracket tend to be the small business owners. But the other problem with this that a lot of the no campaign is saying is, wait a minute, these people have an easy out. They can just move out of Oregon. They can move to Washington State. They can move to Texas or Florida and pay no income tax at all. So we're going to lose our job creators.
And there is an alternative for the state in this case, just to cut spending. That's a little harder for legislators to do, but there is that option. Having said that, though, you did mention this conundrum. A lot of states that they have this constitutional requirement in their states to balance a budget every year, and the quickest way to do so is to hike taxes. It isn't long-term very effective, but short-term it can be. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that raising income tax rates has been proven not to work very well. Remember, we talked about this about 6 months ago, that Maryland raised their taxes on rich people, and then they found that a lot of rich people had moved out of the state, and they weren't paying any taxes at all. So it's a very risky idea. The other thing that's so interesting about this battle, Neil, is something that you were just talking about with a previous guest. Guess who's way behind this? Guess who's spending all of the money on the Yes campaign to raise taxes on the rich? The unions, especially the public employee unions, who need this increase in tax revenues to pay for these unbelievably generous benefits that they get.
All right, Stephen, thank you very, very much. And by the way, the aforementioned unions he referred to, we are rifling through the bottom of the screen their names and their numbers. We have asked any and all to appear on our show. Everyone and all has said, no freaking way. Hell would freeze over before we talk to you. And that was among the half who did return our calls. The other half simply did not. So you're free to ask them. Why not? After this.
Everywhere I turn, people are talking about